Picture this. It's the day of your backyard barbecue. Guests are pulling up in 30 minutes. The brisket's been on since 4 a.m. The charcoal's going strong, and you are panicking because you forgot the buns, the cooler's not cold, and nobody told you that Kimberly doesn't eat pork. Sound familiar? Today we're fixing all of that. I'm Kenyatta Robinson. This is the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ Podcast. And this episode is all about throwing a backyard barbecue that's actually fun for you, the host. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ Podcast, the show for backyard pitmasters who want to cook better, host bigger, and enjoy every single minute of it. I'm your host, Kenyatta Robinson, coming to you from the Diablo Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is episode 103, and if you're new here, welcome to the family. Last week, we talked about carryover cooking, pulling your meat early and letting science finish the job. It was a great episode. Check it out if you haven't already. Today, we're shifting gears a bit. We're not just talking about cooking the food, we're talking about the full hosting experience. How do you throw a backyard barbecue without running yourself ragged? Now, before we go on, let me shout out the guys who are already live in the chat. As I say every week, the comments, the energy, the feedback that I get during the live show is really the engine that drives the entire episode. You guys are what makes it happen. So let me shout you guys out. Always appreciate the folks and remind you as well. You can ask any question that's on your mind related to barbecue. It doesn't have to just be about tonight's topic. If there's a burning question that you've had all week or just something that pops up spur of the moment, go ahead, put it in the chat. I will try and answer the question. And if I'm unable to, there's usually someone else who is watching who can steer us in the right direction. That is the kind of supportive barbecue community that we have. All right, so let me say good evening to Correctional Officer for Lockdown. Great to see you as always. He says good evening to the Society family. Thankful to be able to enjoy tonight's show and the Society too, especially for the groovy music. Always appreciate your ongoing support. Also, good evening to Society Brother Mike, who says, good evening, everyone. Let's see, we also got Society Brother Jeff. So good to see all of you guys. Correctional Officer says, barbecue teaches patience the hard way. Yeah, through heat, smoke, and hours that no one sees, all for a moment for people to remember. Okay, you said you found that from the barbecue life. Yeah, I was thinking, man, you're getting awfully philosophical already in the show, but that's a great quote right there. All right, we got Mike Bones Barbecue. Good to see you again here on the podcast. Good to see you, Mike. Appreciate you jumping in. And we also have Society Brother Eric from the Smiling Family. He says, that's right, it's the best hour of the week. And that's what I say every week. This is my favorite hour of the week where we get to hang out, chop it up, talk about our favorite pastime, barbecue. And we got a super chat. All right. Thank you, Jeff. I do appreciate your super chat. He says the Backyard SmokeMaster Society is kind of like Facebook, but without the psychosis. That is a great way to put it. And yeah, that's exactly what we have created here. So if you see at the bottom of the screen, on the scroll there, if you haven't already become part of the free Backyard SmokeMaster Society, take a moment to get involved. It's free. It's just like this community where we're, you know, supporting each other, firing each other up. The Backyard SmokeMaster Society is kind of like those Facebook groups, but we're not on Facebook. So it's just strictly barbecue. And like Jeff said, we don't get into all of the other psychosis or craziness that's going on in this world. Strictly barbecue talk and support from one another. So if you haven't already, take a moment. It'll only take you about 20 seconds to sign up. And then you can be in there. We talk barbecue whenever we're ready all week long. So I do encourage you to get into the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. All right. So let's get things going. So let's start things off. Let's talk about the number one mistake that barbecue hosts make. Okay. So most people, they treat the party like it's a performance. They want everything to be perfect in the moment, which means that they're never actually at the party. They're at the grill, sweating, stressed, not talking to anybody. So here's the mindset shift I want you to make. So you're a host, you're not a caterer. So your job is to create an experience, not to execute a flawless plate service. So number one, stop trying to do everything yourself on the day of. You'll drive yourself crazy and you won't be able to enjoy the moment. Your guests probably be all cranky and short, and people might wonder, man, what's wrong with this guy? So the goal is for you to have fun too. Your guests can feel your energy as the host. And remember that done and resting beats perfect and panicked every time. All right, so this reminds me. This reminds me. What I want you guys to also do, take a moment to take the poll. You're watching on YouTube, you should see it. The poll question is, when you're hosting a barbecue, what stresses you out the most? Is it timing the meat to come out all at once at the same time? Or is it not knowing how much food to make? Is it managing your guests' dietary restrictions? Or is it the simple act of grilling while also being the host? So get in there, take that poll, and then we will look at the answers later on in the show. All right. Good evening to Dan. Dan's Diamond Detailing says, hey everyone, happy hump day. Absolutely, this is the point of the week. We're now, especially in the evening, we're now on that downhill road right into the weekend. So good to have you as well. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to plan the menu around the party and not the other way around. So you want to match your menu to the vibe, the head count, and your own capacity. So start off by choosing proteins that forgive time. So I'm talking about your big cuts like brisket, pulled pork, and ribs. These are things that if you do them, especially you plan them out well and you do them, start cooking them in advance, these are all meats that hold better after a rest, and they hold well, I should say. So think about including those types of big cuts in your cook. But then also, you want to build in at least one thing that's totally hands off. So think about any sides you can do that don't require babysitting. And then have a simple backup protein in case things start to go sideways. So things like sausage links, they can be your best friend for surprise extra guests that pop in that you didn't count on. And here's a big one. Don't introduce new cooks, things you've never cooked before, at the party. Now is not the time to get adventurous and, maybe try to do those beef oxtails that you've never done before. Stick to your proven wins, and then you have to think about the dietary needs of your guests in advance. So have at least one option for guests who don't eat pork, because there's always somebody that says, I don't mess with the swine. And then also have an option for, heaven forbid, those guests who don't meat at all. And don't ask me what those options are. Talk to your wives. They can help you figure that out. The correctional officer says, the mistake I will never make again is not renting a porta potty. My washrooms are off limits. Wow. So I hate to even guess what caused you to come to that conclusion, but I do know that the wives, the significant other, the ladies in our lives will definitely appreciate not having a bunch of guys going in and out of the house on their way to your bathroom, tracking up, bringing the outside indoors. So I think that is absolutely a good approach. Now, Mike says, whatever it is you do, just do it with confidence, have a plan, and stick to it. So, I mean, I think that is actually the mindset, or, that's kind of like sums it all up, right? So that needs to be kind of like your mindset going into this. When you sign yourself up to host this barbecue party, you absolutely, again, don't get too adventurous. Go with stuff that you know how to cook, that you've had success doing, and then, treat it like with that confidence, right? Know that you know what you're doing. You've done it before, so be confident. And absolutely, absolutely, we preach this just about every week in one way or another. You gotta have a plan. Have a plan, and try to stick to it. And then also, have the mindset as well during the cook. Make the little pivots. We talk about observing what's going on during the cook, so don't be too stubborn. Know what's happening and make the tweaks that you think are needed. Just be decisive. I think that's really the key. Be decisive. Okay, Mike Sue says, don't eat me. If you don't eat meat, don't come. Yeah, I mean, that's where we always want to go, right? But there's likely, if you're hosting a party that's got enough people coming, there's gonna be somebody that's gonna be talking about how they really, they're just here for the good time and the vibes. You really don't eat meat. Do you have something for me too? Okay, but let me give you guys actually, before I do that, the Pitmasters rule of 3. I forgot to mention this. So this should also be part of your mindset. Pick 3 proteins max. So if you go much more than 3, then you're managing a restaurant, not a backyard. So, maybe do 3 serious proteins. But like I said, maybe if you're going to do some sausages, some links, that, you can add that in kind of as that extra thing, but don't be out there trying to do, your brisket, your pork butt, ribs, a chicken and turkey, all at the same time. Because, yeah, especially if you're the only one manning the grill, you're going to run yourself ragged. Okay. Now, let me talk about the 2-day hosting game plan. So, this is kind of like that, like Mike suggested earlier. Make sure you have a plan. So, here's a plan, to stick to when you know that you're hosting a party. And actually, before I do that, Dan's Diamond Detailing said there are so many good vegetables to barbecue and grill. If you don't know, if you don't know how, start learning. That is absolutely fact. That's 100% true. I know we're all mostly focused, on the big meats and nailing those, but that's how you really become well-rounded and ready to do, a barbecue when you do start to branch out into your veggies. And, much as it hurts my pride, I think I get more requests from my wife to do, the dreaded whole potato, which I think is just kind of an insult to my skills, or at least what I think are my skills as a pitmaster, to ask me to do a whole, put some potatoes on the grill. It's like, okay, what is the fun and challenge in that? But something about putting the whole potato on, grill is only at like 250, letting it go for like hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, especially if you wrap it in foil. Something about the consistency and, just how perfect the potato comes out. And that's what gets her asking me to do these potatoes all the time. Corn on the cob always works well. I wish I could eat more asparagus without having, like my own dietary issues, but asparagus goes fantastic on the grill. So, there's lots of good veggies and things like that. And Dan says, yeah, we got some corn, potatoes, peppers, onions, mushrooms, absolutely. And that's just scratching the surface. All right. Dan has got the right attitude. That's right. So that's part of the mind shift. You can have a lot of great, fantastic tasting veggies, so don't shy away from that. Okay, so the 2-day hosting game plan, and it actually starts 3 to 5 days out. Because again, we're talking about having a plan and sticking to it. So the first thing you want to do is you want to lock in your head count and then send a final reminder. So you want to make sure, as best as you can, you know how many people you need to be cooking for and not have, too many surprises, right? And then confirm any dietary restrictions. I know you're just kind of thinking, well, I'm going to cook what I want to cook and they're going to enjoy it regardless. Nah, you don't want that negative energy, when somebody's talking about, they're allergic to this or they can't eat that, and you don't have any other options for them to enjoy. Okay, and then also, we want to build out the grocery as well as the supply list in advance. And then I think this one is probably my favorite. You can season your meats in advance. Dry rubs can go on these proteins 24 to 48 hours early. And if you do like a dry brine or season in advance, they're probably going to end up tasting better as well. Okay. Dan is on fire. He says grilling asparagus with garlic in a wok heat goes hard, and then add some spicy chili oil. Absolutely. Okay, here's a good question from the Smiling family. What was the biggest head count you hosted comfortably without help? Mm. And this is probably wasn't well advised either, but um, when my mom turned 75, we decided to host a party here at my house. And so we invited, and this was, well before I was thinking like this. So, but we invited basically, both sides of my family. I want to say at its peak, I think we easily had 20 people in the yard. Um, and I did brisket, which I did do in advance, and then day of the party, I did ribs, and then I also did like barbecue baked beans. Um, for that, I had done done pulled pork in advance as well, and I used the pulled pork with my barbecue baked beans, and trying to remember if I had anything else. Those are the main proteins that I remember. And it went well. And, my wife basically kind of handled more of like the back end kind of logistics. But as far as like manning the grill and the smoker, it was pretty much, well, it was me. I was it. Um, and that went really, really well. So I want to say probably around 20 people, for a backyard party. But like I said, I don't think I necessarily followed all of these steps and tips that I'm providing to you guys. Now, Mike says, yeah, overnight cook and put it in the warmer. So yeah, absolutely. I think that has to be or can be a part of your strategy, right? Um, do like a brisket, and you can't wait until the day of to start cooking the brisket because it won't be ready. So you have to start cooking the brisket in advance. And since you're cooking the brisket in advance, or maybe you're doing pulled pork, you may as well, plan it so that it is done well before you expect your guests to arrive, and then use different techniques for holding them, keeping them warm. If nothing else, if you don't have a food warmer, again, we've talked about using a Cambro, using a traditional cooler, stuffing them with towels. You can do that to hold the meat for a long period of time. And if if you don't have any of those things, you can use your kitchen oven, set it to the lowest temperature possible, and put it in the oven. Hopefully, it'll go, maybe it can go down to like 160, somewhere in that range, and you will be fine. So definitely make that be a part of your strategy. Okay, so the day before the cook, here are some things you can do the day before. Prep all of the sides that can be made in advance. So these are things like baked beans, coleslaw, potato salad, those types of things. Have that stuff ready in advance. Now, here's where you can really kind of set yourself up and look like a boss, right? Put your wife to work. Set up the serving area and tables and delegate that to her, right? She'll love it. She'll love, kind of making them look nice and cute and fancy, or, whatever the theme is for the party. You know, you delegate that, but then, you set it up so that she feels like, yeah, she's in charge, right? But you know the truth. So get that set up in advance. And then another important thing to do is you want to get your drinks cold early. So hopefully you've got, a halfway decent cooler that can hold ice, for more than 24 hours. Ice down the drinks in the cooler. And then this is probably the most important, at least on this list. Confirm your fire up time, and I mean the time that you need to fire up the grill, the smoker, so that you know what time to set your alarm the next morning. So if you have all of that planned, you know what time you have to wake up and what time that cooker, the smoker, the grill needs to be fired up and rolling smoke, the better off you're going to be. The worst thing you want to have happen, especially if you don't wake up and give yourself enough time to get, to get the cookers going, because we all know that always can take longer than you think, it will or should. So have a plan, like Mike mentioned earlier. Okay, let's see. Correctional officer said, this is definitely helpful. I'm going to have my gratitude cook for Habitat for Humanity, and it will be around 10 to 15 people. I'm going to cook for a few West Coast relatives that will visit this summer. All right, so correctional officer already. All right, he's already got a party, a plan. He's got a party lined up. He's already on the hook, invitations or hopefully, he's let people know what day this is going to happen. He's on the hook. So he's going to be doing a big cook this summer. So that is absolutely cool. And then I knew that comment would generate, a little bit of a little controversy or maybe some snark. The smiling family says, yeah, babe, my big homie Kenyatta told me to put you to work. All right, so yeah. You can blame me. You can use me as the fall guy, right? But yeah, no. Be strategic, guys. Be strategic. Okay, correctional officer says, I might have missed you talking about this, but I learned the importance of setting aside plates for my family. I had a reunion years ago, and they took everything, cooked cakes too. Okay, I get what you're saying there, correctional officer. Yeah, it's not a bad idea if you can. And actually, I'm going to kind of touch on this a little bit later. To set aside, some food, some leftovers, right, for yourself, unless you just don't want any. But you might want to take that into account for your planning as well. All right, Real Meat Stick is in the house. He says, get yourself a jockey box, a cylinder of CO2, a few kegs of beer. You can never go wrong with the selection of ice cold beers on draft. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You need to, you're doing a big party. So plan it all, drinks included. And he also says, always cook for more than what you expect. Yeah, that is a great rule of thumb as well. Okay, now let's get into some things to keep in mind for the day of your party. And I touched on this a few minutes ago. Wake up on time and fire up that grill, that smoker on time. We don't want to be scrambling on the day of, because if you fall behind, you're probably going to be behind all day long, okay? And here's another thought. This could be your wife or maybe your best buddy, little brother. Assign one person a runner role. So again, this is you delegating, you not trying to do everything yourself. So assign one person a runner role, and they're going to be doing things like refilling ice, grabbing things that, that come up that are needed, checking on guests, making sure everybody's good. You want somebody else to be doing that type of stuff. You don't want to be the one doing it. And then to correctional officers' point about setting aside some meat, some food, plan your first plate. So when I say plan your first plate, I'm not talking about the first plate that you're going to hand over to somebody else. I'm talking about your first plate, the one that you are going to eat. So you eating first means that you can be present for the rest of the party. And then this takes some self-discipline. Set a done cooking time and stick to it. And to the points that have been made earlier, everything holds. Everything holds. Once the meat is done, the food is done, get it in a warmer, get it in the oven, do something to hold that temperature so that you can join the party and have a great time. All right. KB Barbecue says, Kenyatta, you got this all figured out. What time should I show up for dinner? My biggest hinge was trying to do everything myself, stressing and wearing myself out, allow others to help. Yeah, I think, that it's kind of just another one of those self-discipline things, right? Because you're the one who's taken on the task and, of learning how to barbecue, getting better at barbecue, right? So this is all you. This is what you want to do. You want to show off your skills. And then, when you do have the big party, the big gathering, you're taking it upon yourself because you're thinking, I got to make sure everything turns out, perfect. Everything turns out correct. And then what ends up happening is, you're just stressed. Like you said, you're doing too much, taking on too much, and wearing yourself out. So I think that's kind of another self-discipline thing. It takes some self-discipline and a willingness, to tell yourself, okay, I need to delegate. I need to hand off some things, some things that I know that other people can handle. And that will actually make me be more effective at doing the main thing that I want to do, which is to cook some great barbecue. All right. So, I don't know if I got it all figured out, but I do, I just passing along, sharing the knowledge, and that's what this is all about. All right, thank you, Smiling Family. Okay, so I've gotten this request before. Where can we buy that hoodie? So I'm gonna go ahead because I never go into this thinking, first of all, that I'm gonna have like an audience, a loyal, like a faithful audience for this. None of this is planned. This is all just like my passion, hobby, and now I'm just trying to expand it even more. So, one of the things I learned to be a little bit more professional, effective, take the branding, get yourself some swag and wear it, like the hoodie, like the hat. But then I never think that anybody would actually be interested in, buying it or anything like that. But I have gotten a couple of requests. So I don't have it set up yet, but I am going to set up a way for you guys, if you are interested and you would like to get the hoodie or a polo shirt or the hat. I'm going to figure out how to make that happen, because that totally, truly humbling, and I do appreciate that. So I will definitely get something together to make that happen sooner than later. So I do appreciate that. Okay, correctional officer says, I make sure my wife informs guests of the time food will be served. Ooh, that's risky. That whole concept of announcing when the food will be served. I tell you, I guess I'm thinking that it's risky because you're putting some pressure on yourself, man. In barbecue, one of the sayings is, the barbecue is done when it's done. It's not so much based on a time. So I don't know. I guess unless you are really confident that you are going to have everything that you intended to serve ready by a certain time, and I don't mean just ready in terms of, you know, coming off of the grill or the smoker, but I mean that it has properly rested, that you have sliced it up and and it's just ready to go on people's plates. If you are absolutely 100% sure, 99% sure you can have it all ready by a certain time, then yeah, by all means, go ahead and tell folks when it's going to be served. I think probably a safer, less stressful approach is, you know, not so much telling people a time, but just kind of making some things available. Like we talked about, like if you're able to do like, your brisket or pulled pork in advance, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, maybe you have some of that available, but then you have other things that are available. So I guess the main thing I'm trying to say is don't think so much in terms of having a set time when everything is ready to be available. Instead, approach this from the perspective of having different things available along the way. And then I think that way you take away some pressure from yourself. You take away some of that overall, like that expectation from the guest too, as well, that everything's going to be, it's a party, right? So again, this isn't, this isn't restaurant correctional officer. It's a party. So we don't have to have that perfection, everything done at a set time. I don't think. That's just my opinion. So I'm just trying to think of, how to take some of that stress away. And I think, a little bit risky to put out a set time. So give that a little bit more thought in terms of your approach for that. Okay, correctional officer says, I'm going to have a triangle dinner bell too. Okay. All right. Well, I got you. I got you. So correctional officer is ready. He's when it's all done, he's ready, kind of like the big, he's gonna do the triangle dinner bell and then everybody can come running. Chow is ready. I got you. I got you. All right. So let me take a moment now. We're going to talk about a little bit more about the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. So again, this is my free community for backyard barbecue enthusiasts. You can sign up for free. Again, it's at the bottom of the screen there. It says go to backyardsmokemaster.com/society. So this is a place to share your cooks, ask questions, get tips, and connect with other people who take their backyard barbecue seriously. Again, it's free to join. It's a great group. So actually, let me pull it up right now. So this is what it looks like. So again, it's like those groups that you've seen on Facebook that are specific to a topic, but you're not getting inundated, with all the extra stuff, that has nothing to do with barbecue. This is strictly barbecue, and we got folks like, John Kettlemania, posting, charcoal discussions for the masses. And then this was a question that Eric, the Smiling family, put in the society a couple of days ago. if I can get that bigger. He says, which Weber setup do you think is better for the backyard? The Weber Summit Kamado by itself, or the Weber kettle and the Weber Smoky Mountain? So I definitely had some thoughts about that, but I thought this was an outstanding question, and I wanted to also pose it in addition to the poll that we got going on, just in the comments. I'm going to see if this will work, but just real simple in the comments, put in what you think is the better backyard setup. So if you think it's best to if you can only pick between these two options, again, it's Weber Summit Kamado by itself or the Weber kettle with the Weber Smoky Mountain, both iconic. So if you think just having the Summit Kamado by itself is the better setup, just put in the comments the word Summit. And then if you think having both the Weber kettle and the Weber Smoky Mountain is the better setup, put both. Just put the word both in the comments. And then I want to see if I can get one of these little fancy tools that I like playing with to see if that's going to work. But I want to see how what you guys think. All right. So in addition, though, while we're talking about the SmokeMaster Society, let me also talk about the inner circle. So the Backyard SmokeMaster Society is the free group. And then for folks who want to go a little bit deeper, we have what's like a premier. It's considered a premier group called the Backyard SmokeMaster Inner Circle. So the inner circle is the next level up. It's for folks who want to go deeper, more direct access to me, exclusive content. And this is the big one. We have private meetings. So in fact, next week, we're going to have an inner circle private meeting on Wednesday, March the 18th. So if you're in the inner circle, you already know about it. But if you're not in yet, this is your sign. So if you've been thinking about it, use the link again at the bottom of the screen, backyardsmokemaster.com/society. And then you can get in and then you can learn more about the inner circle and then decide if that's something that you want to do. Okay, let's see. Let me try this. Oh, I should have set this up. This is where, okay, where I should have done this in advance. Okay, so actually I should have done this in advance. So this isn't going to work quite the way I wanted to, but that's all right. Because again, what I was thinking I was going to do, I was going to have this thing kind of pull up one of these, like a word, I don't even know how to describe it, but based on the responses that you give, it was going to show like if you guys said both, the word both would appear much larger than the word summit, or vice versa. But that's all right. That's all right. This is my fault for not planning that out all the way, but we can still kind of get a feel for what you guys are thinking based on what you're saying and the comments. So yeah, so again, this is the Smiling Family. This was his question, but now he's asking, which cookers are your go-to cookers for your parties? So that's another great question that you guys can respond to. Real Meat Stick says, does the Backyard SmokeMaster Society have a premium VIP plan? So that's a great question. Okay, so the SmokeMaster Society, it's on the school platform. We've got a free plan and we have a premium plan. And I do eventually want to make a VIP plan become available, but it's not. I'm still, it's still kind of in my. I'm in my head about it, so I still need to kind of flesh out exactly what that's going to be. But when I do get that fleshed out, I will definitely make that be known to you guys. And, maybe the fact that you're asking means that that would be something that you would consider. So I will put a little more emphasis or give that more of a priority to flesh that out. But as of today, we don't currently have a premium, like a VIP plan, but we do have a premium plan. So again, if you go to uh, backyardsmokemaster.com/society. And then when you sign up to be part of the society, you will see the options and you'll be able to pick between the free plan that gets you into the society, and then you will see the premium plan that gets you into the inner circle that I've been talking about. Okay, and then correctional officer says, in my short time, the society has helped me tremendously. I am constantly learning and love it. And then he says his vote would be for the kettle and the Weber Smoky Mountain. 2 is always better than 1. Real Meat Stick says, I have both. He has both the Weber Smoky Mountain, the 22-inch, and the Summit Kamado. Dan's Diamond Detailing says, Weber Smoky Mountain all day. Jeff says, if you're only getting one, the Weber Summit Kamado will do everything the Weber Smoky Mountain and Classic Kettle can do. Okay, I have some thoughts about that. I'm gonna talk about them, but let me get to these other comments. Real Meat Stick says, I cooked on my Summit Kamado tonight. Grilled chicken wings and veggies. It's an excellent charcoal smoker. And correctional officer said, my 55-gallon oil drum is my go-to grill. So when he does his big party, his 55-gallon oil drum is going to be his main cooker for the party. So again, this was a great question, right? So let me give you my thoughts, and I actually already put this in the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. So I'm going to put Jeff's comment back up. He said, if you're only getting one, the Summit Kamado will do everything the Smoky Mountain and Classic Kettle can do. I agree, but I'll also say the Weber Kettle can also do everything that the Summit Kamado can do and the Smoky Mountain can do at a much cheaper price. So to me, and I have all three. Okay, so I don't have a dog in this fight. I've got the Weber Summit Kamado, I got the 22-inch Weber Smoky Mountain, and I've got 2 Weber kettles. So the Summit Kamado is an excellent, if you're only going to get one cooker and you land on the Summit Kamado, the Summit Kamado would definitely have to be one that you would consider if you can only have one cooker, because it is top shelf, highly versatile, can do anything you throw at it. It can handle direct heat. It can do 2-zone cooking, low and slow, hot and fast. It's got some great accessory support. It can do it all. The Weber kettle can also do it all. The same things I just said about the Summit Kamado, I think is true for the Weber kettle. I think the big difference between the two, the Summit Kamado is it's a more efficient cooker than the kettle, and then it's larger as well, so it does give you more cooking space. Although you could get, a 26-inch kettle, or you could get that big ranch kettle. But for the most part, the Summit Kamado is larger than most of the kettles. And again, Summit Kamado, more efficient of a cooker, but I maintain anything you can do on the Summit Kamado, you can also do it on the kettle. And I would also argue that the kettle has better accessory support. So there are probably some things you can do on the kettle with different accessories that you may not necessarily be able to do on the Summit Kamado. So for instance, and I might be wrong, I might not be up to date, but to the best of my knowledge, there still is not a rotisserie attachment for the Summit Kamado. Let me know in the comments if I missed that, but I don't think there is. But, Weber does make a rotisserie for the kettle, and then there's another company that I hear a lot about. I think it's Only Fire, I think is the name of it. They also make a rotisserie that supports the kettle. So that's just one example that I can think of off the top of my head where I think there's deeper accessory support for the kettle than the Summit Kamado. So my answer to this question actually would be, if I had to pick Summit Kamado or Kettle and Smoky Mountain, I would go Kettle and Smoky Mountain, and kind of goes back to, I think I saw somebody, like a correctional officer. Well, he said, yeah, the Kettle and Weber Smoky Mountain. I agree. I think in most cases, having two cookers is always better than having only one. Again, if you can only have the Summit Kamado, you're going to be fine. You're going to be absolutely fine. And then another point, and this was something we were talking about in the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. I think it was the Smiling Family who said it, who observed that when you do put the Summit Kamado up against other cookers, when it comes to assessing the smoke flavor, smokiness, myself and other YouTube creators, I think we've kind of come to the same conclusion that in most cases, other cookers like drum smokers or even the kettle actually yields a deeper smoke flavor than the Summit Kamado does. I think it's something to do with the efficiency and the way the air is moving around inside of the cooker. I don't get too deep into the science, but I think the efficiency has something to do with, why the Summit Kamado is producing a very clean smoke. You're not getting as much dirty smoke. And then, I don't know, for whatever reason, whenever I put it up against other cookers, I typically find the other cookers yield deeper smoke flavor than the Summit Kamado. So that was just another observation. So, all right, so I went kind of deep on that tangent, but that's my answer to that one. And again, thank you, Smiling Family, for posting that question. Okay, Real Meat Stick. No, read that. Hold on, I'm just kind of catching up. Hello to Carlton's Cooking. Good to see you. Appreciate you coming back in and tuning into the podcast live. Smiling Family says, yeah, Weber Smoky Mountain and Kettle. Kenyatta showed me that the Kettle turns out tastier chicken than the Summit. His videos also showed me that for low and slow, the Summit isn't the smokiest, so that's my choice. So again, that was just for my own observations, but I think there's some other videos out there in the YouTube verse that have kind of come to the same conclusions. The Real Meat Stick says, a 55-gallon drum Uh, a 55-gallon drum make into a grill is a street classic. Reminds me of getting pan chicken and grilled pork and fish in Jamaica. All right. And then Smiling Family says for the summit price, you can buy, this is true, a kettle, a Weber Smoky Mountain, and a bunch of meat. Yeah, you will absolutely have some money left over. There's a rotisserie attachment. Okay, I forgot about that one. Made by Spit on Fire. And then Smiling Family says he's going to post some pics of this in the Backyard SmokeMaster Society message board. So again, if you're not already in the society, jump in, sign up. It'll take you 20 seconds. Correctional officer says he's going to level up his 55-gallon drum, but it's all his 55-gallon drum. Well, okay, let me start over. He says, I'm going to level up, but my 55-gallon drum will always be special for me because it has been with me from the start of my studying barbecue-ology. Okay, Real Meat Stick says the weak point of accessories are in the motors on a rotisserie. It's a shame when American brands integrate those made in China motors. The electric motor is the first point of failure. Again, I'm imagining, I know I haven't had that issue yet, but I'm imagining if you're going to be using a rotisserie on a regular basis, like weekly, you may very well run into some issues. But yeah, I haven't had that experience so far, knock on wood. And then Smiling Family says, I think the exhaust vent position, this could very well be true, is the reason for the summit's level of smoke flavor. Okay, that's an interesting comment. I don't know enough about the science, to really speak with any authority, on whether or not the position of the vent on the Summit Kamado has something to do with the smoke flavor. I don't know. I know the Summit Kamado, is double. They talk about that double-walled insulation, so it's kind of like twice as insulated, I believe, as a kettle. So I kind of suspect that may have something to do with it as well. Okay, but we're not done, all right? Oh, that's not the right one. Hold on. Get it together. Wait a minute. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to give you guys some hosting hacks that make a big difference. So here are some quick hit tips that will level up the experience without adding more stress. Because again, we're talking about how to host that party and have it be a stress-free experience for you. Okay, so one thing you should do, set up a self-serve drink station so guests will stop asking you for drinks and you stop having to leave the pit to get them that next beer, that next soda, that next bottle of water or whatever. So this is simple. Put some drinks in the cooler, separate the alcohol from the soft drinks, and you'll be good. Here's one that I need to get better at, and this is one that I would definitely delegate. Label your meats. You can use simple tent cards or a chalkboard. Guests love knowing what they're eating. I know. You guys, you don't need that. You see the meat, you know exactly what it is. But, there's always going to be kind of like that neophyte that isn't quite sure, what the meat is or may have some questions. Now, here's one that I think correctional officer would excel at. He's always talking about the music, right? So make a playlist in advance. Music sets the whole vibe. Doesn't take a whole lot of time to set up a great playlist before the party. So, put a whole bunch of songs on the playlist and let them roll. And that way you don't have to worry about, having to DJ during your party. And now I kind of hinted at this, but have a graze zone. So you want to have things available for people to, to kind of eat, to graze on, while you might still be working on kind of like the main event stuff. So put out chips, pickles, pickled onions, bread, something for your guests to snack on while the big proteins finish. Keep the hangry energy away. And then, yeah, like I said, if you're really good and you've done a great job at planning and actually executing your plan in advance, hopefully your brisket or your pulled pork is already done. So if that's the case, pre-slice some of your brisket or pull some pork before the guests arrive. And you know why? Because this takes away pressure from you to perform the carve in front of everyone. You know it. If they've been waiting on you to put the food out, or as correctional officer said, have your wife tell everybody that the food is going to be ready at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 comes and you still haven't sliced the brisket, or you haven't taken that rack of ribs and sliced them into individual bones, and now you got to do it with everybody looking at you all excited with anticipation, and the pressure is on, to have some nice clean cuts. You want to avoid that and have some stuff already pre-sliced if you can. And set up shade if you can. Happy guests equals guests that stay longer, and talk about your barbecue forever. All right, let's see. I saw some more comments come in. Correctional officer says the Slow and Sear has a grill basket for offset smokers that holds water. How effective will a basket like this be? Is that true? I know that Slow and Sear has, they've made different sizes of the S&S for different charcoal-based cookers, but you're saying that they now have a grill basket for offset smokers that holds water. Huh, that is pretty interesting. I'm trying to visualize what that might look like. A basket, Slow and Sear basket. Hold on, I'm trying to multitask. For offset smokers. Uh, huh, huh. Okay, it looks like that is accurate. Okay, wait a minute. Let me get this up on the screen here. Okay, Slow and Sear offset smoker charcoal basket plus water wall movable grill water reserve pan. Wow. And so, okay, correctional officer is asking, how effective would that be? So I'm trying to see where, I want to see, what does the water reservoir look like? Well, they make great accessories. Okay, there it is. Huh. Well, okay. So my answer, and you guys let me know if you agree or disagree. My first reaction is, I don't really think that it's necessary to get this from them. Because there, you know, you can get a charcoal basket from other places. Doesn't have to be name brand or particularly expensive. And then, you know, you can get just like an aluminum pan, you know, and put some water in. Um, and so I don't know. I think this will be just as effective as doing that or vice versa. So I'm not really seeing anything here that makes me think that this would be any better than what you can already get or create on your own. Like I don't even really know that you need, kind of depending on the size of the firebox of your offset cooker. So for instance, in my Lone Star Grill's 20 by 42, having the charcoal basket was like a godsend, because it helped me to contain and have a nice contained small fire inside of my firebox, and that greatly improved my ability to manage the temperature on my LSG. Now, I also last year I bought the Liberty 94, which is a larger offset smoker that has a larger firebox, and I don't need a basket. Um, it to me, it's much easier to just, you know, build a nice fire inside of that fire basket or firebox. Um, Basket not needed, you know, for that. Um, and then, I mean, both of my offsets, the Liberty 94 and the LSG, I can just add water into the cooking chamber without using an aluminum pan or like a little reservoir, kind of like what Slow and Sear is offering here. So I don't know. I guess I kind of feel like this is their way of kind of getting into this market, you know, into this product space. I think it can be as effective as other things that are available or things that you can do yourself. That's kind of my take on that. But that's pretty cool. Now, another thing why I love coming on here every week and chopping it up with you guys, because you guys are really on it and paying attention to what is available. Because I had no idea that this was something that Slow and Sear was already offering. So that is pretty cool. Um, let's see. Correctional officer said also have a nice music box with some nice music for your party, and then also, yeah, have some lawn games too. That's another excellent idea. Smiling Family says in a kettle indirect setup, smoke travels from one side over the food and then out of the exhaust on the opposite side. The summit center exhaust is a different story. Yeah, okay. I followed. Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, so I guess that is another thing that does make that different from a kettle, because on the kettle, you can pick up the lid and reposition it so that the exhaust, you know, is in a different position, like it's not stationary fixed like it is on the Summit Kamado. So that, yeah, okay, that's an excellent point. Carlton's Cooking says, I'm ready to have a cook party at the house now. Well, that's the goal. Hopefully, you know, you guys get some good information, some practical information that you can use. And I agree with this. This is what I was trying to express earlier. Food keeps coming out all day. Yeah, every couple of hours is another round of courses. We eat like we are going like we are going to the chair. I don't know what that meant. Maybe like we're going to the fair, which leads to the topic of have enough bathrooms and stocked. I think that's kind of turning into like a surprising um, a surprising point of emphasis. The bathroom. I wasn't really thinking in terms of the bathroom. I know correctional officer said he's gonna rent a porta potty. And yeah, Real Meat Stick is saying, yeah, definitely make sure there are enough bathrooms and or, if the ones that you have available, make sure they are stocked well. Interesting. When I'm doing theme parties like Oktoberfest or a Fish Fest, I still have other foods available for those that are skittish about eating items outside of their comfort zones. That's a great point. And yeah, that's what, yeah, trying to emphasize, you kind of need to think about, you know, again, the dietary restrictions or needs, or kind of just what preferences of what people are willing to eat and what they may not be willing to eat, and trying to have some type of an option available to meet as many of these folks' needs as possible. Now, getting back to the slow and sear, he says, Real Meat Stick says that slow and sear water baffle is a heat sink, yep, to control the heat at the throat of an offset. It also adds humidity to the cook chamber. Yeah, and that's generally the reason why people use water in an offset smoker. Yeah, to help control your temps, serving as a heat sink, and to potentially add humidity to the cook chamber. So again, I think you can accomplish that, with kind of like a homemade solution as well. But yeah, I get it. I get why they are making that available, and with their reputation, I'm sure it will do very well. Okay, Gadget Cat says, I literally just got a rotisserie kit from my Weber kettle today, and I have two chicken, chicken roosters brining in a lemon pepper brine for the weekend. All right, well, good to see you. Thank you for jumping in the comments, Gadget Cat. Good to see you. Don't be a stranger. And that's excellent. I think that having a rotisserie for the kettle, that's one of my favorite accessories. And yeah, doing a dry brine in advance, or even a wet brine, just brining the chicken in advance is definitely the way to go. If you are wet brining, I would say after you get the chicken out of a wet brine, um, try and pat it dry, get the skin as dry as possible before you get it on the rotisserie. But I suspect, since you said you're doing a lemon pepper brine, I suspect that this is a dry brine. Okay. Real Meat Stick said the chair, as in the electric chair, like as in your last meal. Got it, got it. So he's talking about having food rolling. Um, Anyway, we won't go too deep on that, but yeah, I got you. I got you. Correctional officer says a good way to experience barbecue competitions is by volunteering to help with the barbecue competition teams. I have already put my bid in for one that is scheduled for Chicago. Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. That's also a good way to learn. Like if that's something that you think you want to do, like if you think you want to get involved in barbecue competitions, no better way to learn than to volunteer, and sit in, with these guys, and then you can kind of see the whole process. So that's a great point. Says I will get a chance to work with a serious barbecue team and not have to worry about the cost of the competition too. And I bet you will have a whole lot of fun doing that. Absolutely. Okay, let me now, hold on, bear with me here. Let's see. About the cost of the competition. Don't want to have echo going on. I wanted to take a look at the poll results. So again, let's see. I just saw them and then it went away. Why does YouTube do that to me? Okay, there we go. Okay, so again, the poll question was, when you're hosting, and it just keeps going away from me. Okay, when you're hosting a barbecue, what stresses you out the most? And most of you said timing the meat to come out at once. Actually, it was 33% for timing the meat to come out at once, as well as 33% saying not knowing how much food to make. Oh, and then also at 33%, grilling while also being the host. So those three answers got the same number of votes, and nobody selected managing guest dietary restrictions. So that was kind of like almost a non-issue. So that's interesting though, that all three of those things came out with the same number of votes. So I think it just kind of accentuates the point, that there are really just a lot of different issues to take into consideration, when you are planning and hosting a barbecue party. So again, the goal for today's show was simple. You work hard to cook great food. You deserve to actually enjoy the party you throw. So again, plan ahead, keep the menu tight, and give yourself permission to have fun. So a few more things. Just want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, join the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. It's at the bottom of the screen there. BackyardSmokeMaster.com/society. It'll just take you a few seconds to get in. And then if you want to go next level, premier level, you can upgrade your membership and become part of the Backyard SmokeMaster Inner Circle. The Inner Circle, we will have another private meetup next Wednesday, March the 18th. Now, if this episode helped you, do me a favor. If you haven't already, hopefully you've already hit that like button, but also share it with a friend who's hosting a barbecue this spring. It might save their sanity. Let's see. A correctional officer said the poll is definitely interesting. Knowing how much food is something I am always concerned with. All right, so another fun topic. Again, I really appreciate all the feedback, the comments, the energy. Again, as I say, it drives the show. And I always learn something as well during the course of the stream. Okay, you guys, so we're gonna be gonna take a couple of weeks off. So actually next week during the time that the podcast normally airs is gonna be the Inner Circle meetup. So hopefully you guys will be part of that. It'll be 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So that's next Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, the 25th, I'm actually going to be at the 35th annual National Barbecue Association's conference in Nashville. So this will be my first time attending an NBBQA event. There are going to be a lot of like heavy hitters in barbecue that will be speaking, giving presentations. So I'm hoping to learn a lot and make some good contacts and hopefully make some good friends. And who knows, if any of you are also attending, maybe this will be a chance to see you and we can meet in person. So next podcast will be on Wednesday, April the 1st, 6 p.m. Pacific time. So hope to see you then. In the meantime, again, get into the Backyard SmokeMaster Society where we will keep the conversation going. All right, guys, this is Kenyatta Robinson. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you all. Get out there. The weather is getting better, so perfect time to get out there, enjoy your grills and smokers, plan that party. Now you've got some great information you can use, and I will see you next time.